What's up, besties? I hope you're having a striking day. You can read, so you know what this video is about. I'm not sure if inspired is the right word in these circumstances. What influenced me to make this video is Twitter. A trigger warning, quite an obvious one, but just in case, if you don't feel like you should watch this, don't. There is a whole bunch of things that, it's obvious for this. It's obvious for this topic. No, Twitter has always been full of annoying people. Everyone liked joking about it being the worst site ever, but honestly, I actually liked it. And it's really a pity because there are people who are just delighted over Elon coming in there and making it a free speech platform while he continuously proves that that's not what he's doing. And the whole reason why I liked it and why I still use it more than, for example, Tumblr was that it wasn't an echo chamber. Tumblr definitely is a progressive echo chamber. I just like having discussions with people who have different opinions than me. I rarely convince anyone to switch sides, but I just enjoy it. But now Twitter is also becoming an echo chamber, just a conservative one, especially because of the paid accounts being moved to the top of all threads, and we all know who's willingly paying conservative assholes money, but also the worst people out there are not getting banned. I'm seeing actual open neo-Nazis and fascists on my feed constantly. I'm not sure if everyone gets that or if Elon is just trying to rage bait me into interacting with the site more and other people see stuff that would rage bait them. But one thing that I noticed is that if a person who disagrees with me on something has an anime profile picture, the absolute last thing I want to do is to go check their profile and try to find something embarrassing or whatever, because chances are doing that will put me on some list. Seriously, it's insane. This was a bit of a long intro, I know, but we are right at the topic, the lolly breaks. The reason I gave you this context is just because this made me realize some other things about, let's say, the ideologies that these people often subscribe to. Not every single one of them, probably, it's hard to make a generalization, and I'm not sure if there are statistics made, credible statistics. Because it is incredibly ironic with this current cultural bullshit that you have someone who is, for example, usually I see it, calling trans people or LGBT people or their supporters in general deranged, perverted, grommers, and pedophiles, while at the same time enjoying porn of underage characters. And I know that you would argue that, oh, it's wrong, it's not real, there isn't a problem with that, and act like you're the insane one for thinking this is abhorrent. So I thought I'll start from very quickly going through some of the arguments I most often saw them using to defend themselves, because before I move to my actual point, because these have been addressed by many other people before, and honestly I initially wanted to just say, yeah, I'm going to start this video from the premise that this is absolutely always wrong and immoral, and just get to my observations around the topic. But since this is a somewhat scripted video, it just feels fuller when I tackle the whole issue, and I really don't want it to seem like I'm overlooking something just because it's obvious. I think anyone who decided to click into this video knows the term already, but just in case, here's a definition from Wikipedia. I'm not writing my own, I think this is sufficient. In Japanese pop culture, lolicon, also romanized as roricon or lolicon, is a genre of fictional media in which young or young-looking girl characters appear in romantic or sexual contexts. As you can hear, this is about young girls, but there is a boy concept art for it, so for the sake of convenience in this video, I'm going to use these terms in a gender-neutral way. I don't want to do any bastardization of the Japanese language. but I also frankly don't care about naming different genres of pedophilia correctly. Also, this honestly also applies to anything not even related to Japan, manga, or anime, because this is clearly not just a Japanese problem, since we're talking about Westerners being weird mostly, like these people I'm seeing. Typically not Japanese, I'm pretty sure, and yeah, and it's typically about the young girls, but the term portmanteau of the English words Lolita and complex also refers to desire and affection for such characters. Loli and fans of such characters and work. Associated with unrealistic and stylized imagery within manga, anime, and video games, lolicon in otaku, manga anime fan culture is understood as distinct from desires for realistic depictions of girls or real girls as such, and associated with the concept of mo, or feelings of affection and love for fictional characters as such, often cute characters in manga and anime. So yeah, the most common defense I've seen was that this doesn't actually hurt real life children, since it's just drawing. That's the strongest argument, so I'm starting with it. And obviously, this is not comparable to actual child rape, but the sole normalization of sexualizing children absolutely does harm them. This content is targeted at one particular group of people, and this group, once again, does often harm children, like physically. It simply allows people to pursue their attractions to minors. It just perpetuates the sexualization of childlikeness, which is something I want to talk more about in a moment, which is very much already common in our society, not just regarding this topic. This also relates to how the characters are depicted, because, well, real people don't look exactly like that, that's even within the definitions, not like the realistic depiction. But if you look at the features that get exaggerated, it's stuff like large heads, big eyes, or small noses. These are childlike features, so putting further emphasis on those makes the drawings less realistic, sure, but it only reinforces that these are supposed to be young children. And also, when saying that this is okay because no children were abused in the process of making it, you say that the only issue with watching child pornography in general is that the kids getting film abuse. Totally nothing else. So, according to this logic, if someone like snaps a picture of someone's kid at the swimming pool and then uses it for like sexual pleasure, but the kid isn't impacted, that's okay. Another argument I've seen a lot is that actually lolis are just petite women, not children. Which I guess could sometimes almost make sense, but the thing is that a lot of the shit in this genre clearly looks like prepubescent kids, and a lot of the consumers aren't hiding it and will use specifically very low ages for these characters. So if someone is only into adults, they can just not associate with the term that describes something pedophilic with no ambivalence. It is about the children. And I'm going to talk about it more later, but being into childlike features in adults also sucks. It sucks on a completely different level than being into young kids, but it's still something harmful to our society, so... The other argument I've seen is that treating this seriously and trying to do anything to tackle this issue is watering down the term pedophile and distracting from real harm, and thus we should focus on other stuff, which is a non-argument. There's always something worse going on, and this is once again terrible. I don't think I've ever seen someone who was more angry at drawn child porn than at, let's call it, live action child porn. Everyone knows that these are separate but related problems, and people like conflating the term pedophile with child sexual offender. But these are not synonyms. Pedophile only describes the attraction, not the actions taken. So yes, lolicons are definitely pedophiles, and I just don't think we should like lie to ourselves about that. Another one in similar spirit was that, well, if someone has these attractions, it's better if they just watch this and do any of the weird stuff. And to that, I have to remind everyone that we are, in fact, in control of our own actions. This really feels like some badly done emotional blackmail. Ooh, I'm either going to watch lolicon, or if not, then I'm actually just little kids. This is not an either or. You can just not do any of those things. And people do that when talking about adults too. Well, men have their needs and desires, blah blah blah. It does not matter. This is not a need, this is a want. A want that does not need to be fulfilled, and in this case shouldn't be. We don't have any proof that this makes the people watch their little anime instead of hurting kids. Like I've searched for it, there is nothing like credible. This would be also very hard to measure, obviously, but yeah. The type of people who will hurt children will do it regardless, I think. I mean, if someone has this type of attraction, the solution isn't to just feed into it. It's to go to therapy and learn how to live with it without impacting their life and leading them to do bad things. I'm not even talking about the, oh, she's actually a 1,000-year-old witch argument. This is so dumb. It's literally a meme. One more thing was comparing this to violent video games. Which is stupid, because while violent media isn't mostly consumed by violent people, lolicon is consumed by pedophiles. A normal person doesn't want to see that. It is repulsive, and if there is violence in a film or in a game, it doesn't have to be condoned. It's typically acknowledged that it's wrong, or even if it's not, then it's just overlooked. And the entertainment comes from plot or some like gameplay mechanic stuff, you know. It's not about killing, it's about finishing the mission, which does involve killing, right? Sure. Just not from the violence itself. If someone is deliberately watching videos of people or animals getting brutally killed or hurt in any other way just because it gives them pleasure, yes! They are also a sicko. These people exist, and we also dislike them. It's not like there is someone you want to compare yourself to. And in case of lolicon, seeing the sexual content of children is the goal, and is supposed to be the source for entertainment, so yeah, that's just not a good argument. When it comes to anti-lolicon arguments, I've also looked through some philosophical papers on, for example, fictive versus regular imagination, or active versus passive fantasy, and the ethics of that. And some of the stuff I've seen seems to support my argument. In honesty, I'm not convinced this is tangible enough for me to care. I'm not a philosopher. I was quite reluctant to even include this part with arguments because it makes it seem like this is a debatable topic, and it's just not. One weird part of social media for me, I'm not sure if this is a universal experience, is that I see something and I get invested in it. Then I just keep on finding information on it, and I have a hard. And if I have a hard stance on it, I look at what the other side is saying and think about all the possible responses. And in this, I think I get softened up and desensitized to some of the craziness in a way. And I just see it as less insane. In a way that people in real life who weren't exposed to this wouldn't, and I just don't want to be charitable here. And similarly, if I brought up the topic of lolicon to someone who has not subjected themselves to this discussion, they wouldn't even consider these arguments. They just call it sick and perverted, period. I'm not saying that it's bad to have arguments for every single position you hold. I just think it's unhealthy to be chronically online to the point where you feel they need to do that for things that are quite obvious. I don't know where to put it in this video, so let's just say it here. I also think the lines of what is and what isn't okay are quite blurry, like to be fair. An example of this would be Lolita, the book by Vladimir Nabokov, which relates to the genre's name. Somehow anytime I mention it to someone, they call it a disgusting book, whether or not they have actually read it. But I did, and I agree. It's not an easy read, at least for me it wasn't. It made my blood boil, but it's also excellent. First of all, it's a book, so we don't have the visuals. Second, it doesn't really try to make the actions of the protagonist, Humbert, takes seem okay. I mean, it's complicated. He excuses everything and at some points just lies, and he's the main narrator, which is why I think this book is so fascinating. But it's quite obvious that he's unreliable and just an awful person, so we just get this psychological portrait of a pedophile. It doesn't work as well when it comes to the film adaptations. I mean, it would be hard to do that. Oh, he's the narrator, and and they all seem victim blaming, and they all seem off to me. I don't like them, especially the Kubrick's version. Jesus. The scary part for me, aside from some gross descriptions, is that at some point the way he speaks really reminds me of the stuff I see misogynistic men say online, with how one of his justification is, for example, that actually every man thinks like this, and every man is repulsed by grown women and dislikes little girls, and as he calls them, nymphets. Again, this book is gross, but I don't think it was morally wrong for Nabokov to write, or is morally wrong for anyone to read. Another thing would be vent art or other forms of art that's made with the presumption that hurting and sexualizing children is wrong, and without real life children involved. I don't think the sole act of making that is morally wrong. But what about consumers? Can we trust them not to be weird about it and use it for sexual pleasure? And if not, then maybe the making of it wasn't morally questionable, but sharing it is. Even outside of Lolly, with real life pictures, we have some blurry lines when it comes to what is and isn't creepy. My grandma has a fine photo of me when I was like 5 on a beach wearing a tiny swimsuit, just having fun, and that's cool. She just loves her grandkids. But if that same photo was found with other pictures of other not fully dressed kids on some stranger's hard drive, it would obviously be something completely different. And it also relates to people being weird on social media. I've seen some content creators noticing that when it comes to family vloggers posting their kids online, some very specific stuff gets way more attention than usual. For example, videos of kids eating, especially bananas or like sausages. Phallic objects. Again, anything swimming related. Or like something that would require wearing less clothes, and this just goes back to a conversation about, and this gets more saves, more likes, more attention, and this just goes back to a conversation about how to best protect kids online and whether we should post them at all, because some parents seem to do this deliberately to monetize their kids. But even if for them this stuff is wholesome, there are clearly people willing to use that to their advantage. And hey, no kids suffered in the process, so according to the lolicon logic, this is fine, right? And the kid was just having fun at the swimming pool. Whatever, who cares that this is a real child, as long as they don't know. And we also get to the, well, it's not clear if she's an adult or not, cases, and the borderline cases. I myself am the type of person whose age people often heavily underestimate. unless I'm wearing dark makeup. And I'm 22. I don't want it to be morally wrong to be attracted to me. I guess here we can analyze whether the features that someone is attracted to are the childlike ones. But for these reasons, I think the legal situation of the issue is so complicated. We don't want to censor. We don't want to censor art, but we want to protect children, and yeah, that's just to say legality doesn't equal morality. Obviously, like. Right, one more argument I see a lot is that, oh, it's not illegal. I don't care, it's not illegal. It can still be wrong. And on the point of childlike features, a huge part of the typical beauty standards for women is just that, right? Because for men, they are supposed to be tall and big and maybe muscular and have a well-defined jaw and maybe a beard or some other type of facial hair or body hair. Anything manly and not just boyish, right? And it also sucks, to require people to have certain features that they don't have control over in order to call them attractive, or even if they do control it, but they just don't want to be the certain way. But for women, well, women are supposed to be the opposite, short, thin, no hair below their eyelashes, which only naturally occurs in prepubescent kids. No wrinkles, of course, no tattoos, piercings, or crazy hair. Only adults can do these things. Of barely legal age. Basically too old to date once her prefrontal cortex, the brain's rational part, is fully developed at like 25. Submissive, inexperienced, especially sexually, perhaps an unemployed trad wife, fully financially dependent on her man, not too knowledgeable or independent, not to be intimidating. I mean, these men will always say that, oh, they just don't care about it. They just look at your appearance and how well you can serve them. But if they truly didn't care, they wouldn't be chatting about it constantly with their besties in their little podcast. They clearly do care. It's not just about, I'm not attracted to this. It's about none of you should be doing that. You just listen to them, and it seems like what a man like this wants, and is convinced every man wants, is someone who looks like she could be his daughter, acts like his mom, except has no authority to tell him to clean after himself and just does it for him, and whom he can fuck whenever he wants, but who also cares about some purity thing and was saving it up for him. And just to be clear, I'm not convinced they speak for all men. First of all, we all see there's plenty of men dating or expressing attraction towards women their own age, and they can have different types. Some men straight up just are into MILFs, or generally older women. And second, even the ones who say that don't know what they're talking about. It's like with makeup and how every now and then a guy will post something like, natural women are the most beautiful, don't wear makeup, men don't like that. And post a photo of a woman who clearly is wearing makeup. It's just done with nude colors only. There was this thing that came out not long ago. Sex worker confirms that red pill alpha males hire women to pose for photos and pretend to like them. She also says these guys have no fucking clue that most of the women they hire are over the age of 30. I guess they just imagine that right after the moment of turning 25, women just magically turn into old, wrinkled grandmas, and they just abandon reality completely, and It was like a year ago, but I don't have anyone hitting on me that often, so I remember every instance. And I was standing in a somewhat crowded place, big headphones on my ears, waiting for my friends because we were going to an event. And then this guy comes up to me. I thought he's maybe asking for directions or something, so I took the headphones off. But no, he just wanted to talk. He looked like a candle. I mean, not in a plastic way and not in a fake way, just in a tall, fit, short blonde hair, symmetric face, and all that stuff Windsors cry about. With a pretty boring, I guess, business casual outfit. I only remember because he brought up my appearance to compliment it. I was dressed quite alternatively with these huge long boots, which were not weather appropriate. But at once made the event quite problematic. But at one point, it felt like he's accusing me of being a poser, which annoyed me because he looked like that. The conversation wasn't going too well. The surrounding was loud, and I naturally have a pretty quiet voice. So even if I speak quite confidently, I often get like, "Oh, please be louder. I can't hear you." So he had to ask me to speak up like 3 times. The outfit part was annoying. I think I told the story already somewhere, but I think he must have watched some pickup art advice because he sounded similar to the pickup coaches online. But it wasn't too terrible either until he pulled this line, literally like, trying to quote, "Oh, by the way, how old are you? Because I'm 23 and you look like 17." You, right? No? And it's not him guessing wrong that ended it for me. That happens a lot even with like lower guesses, I guess. Is that he either admitted he's attracted to someone who, in his opinion, looks underage, or thought that it will be a flattering lie for me to hear that I look underage, and whichever it is, I guess from my personal point of view, it's just very unpleasant that I'm being compared to a kid. It's just weird. Being on social media and looking at the content made by other young women, it just became apparent to me how the experiences I had as an actual kid attracting way more grown men than I do now as an adult. Really, like, it doesn't really happen anymore. Are not unique and actually quite common, and it's creepy that there will be grown people like catcalling us on like messaging us and sending us disgusting things online when we're way too young, and it's obvious that we are way too young. Which goes to say, obviously, this isn't just a Japan problem, even though when talking about lolicon specifically, it's a culture revolving around manga and anime, and the whole schoolgirl thing is also big out there. It's always about like Japanese schoolgirls. Nobody like cares about any other ones. I honestly wonder if regular manga and anime could be like a gateway to the loli stuff, because while I haven't noticed much in the stuff that I've watched, I also haven't watched that much. Though I find it funny how your characters just do the completely opposite thing, and they all look like the way they look, especially in the super muscular parts. Um, but then they are like supposed to be teenagers often. And I've heard people saying that when searching for anime to watch, and especially hentai stuff, which for those not knowing is just a general term for anime or manga porn, there's lots of stuff everywhere that's suspicious at best. And I don't want to say that the stereotype of an anime fan applies to everyone, but at least some of the most obsessed guys are just of the socially awkward type that doesn't really talk to women much, and media can contribute to forming our desires and the way we perceive groups of people, especially if we don't have much contact with them. And this goes both towards warping their perception of women and girls in general, but also those specifically from Asia and Japan to be exact, and forming these weird stereotypes. And this is very observable that men try to make stereotypes about women from different countries with little to no understanding of the actual culture of those countries. Imagining Asian and in general women as helpless and submissive, and also small and cute, and But also, I've seen a similar stereotype coming from Western men about Slavic women, And while I think that when they say Slavic, they usually think Russian, a lot of these Slavic stereotypes just come from Russia. I assure you, we are not like that. uh, Interestingly enough, the Polish part of my audience will know it. But when the Russian invasion on Ukraine, began, and there was a huge wave of immigrants coming our way, Polish misogynistic men, and especially the red pill types, were just delighted and could not shut up about how there are these beautiful, submissive Eastern women who are not tainted by feminism and are now in a desperate position and easy to control coming here, and they don't need the awful opinionated ugly Poles who don't want to submit the first man they meet and have too high standards, and for some crazy feminist reasons don't want the catches like them. Like, it's literally Slavic men seeing that Slavic women surrounding them aren't Slavic quite like the Westerners say they should, so they look for Slavia women from the East, as if there was that big of a difference. Surprisingly enough, the war refugees were mostly women with children, and not just young singles ready to just abandon everything and settle with the first basement gnome they meet. How would they meet them? That's another topic. But some time ago, Twitter also had the field day week. I don't remember, something like that, about people making up fantasies about Hispanic women being all submissive and serving their husband and cooking for them and all. Well, why that's not even like the stereotype about them. They just like making this boogeyman out of feminism because in their eyes, women being subservient is the default natural state that has been ruined by giving women rights and claiming that women from where they're from destroyed by it. But perhaps they can fantasize about and reinsert some society they view as more conservative, whether that's geographical or a different point in time, usually the 1950s in the USA. It's funny when people believe propaganda from that period, especially if these people are not even from the USA. Again, the Polish red pill types also love the American propaganda with women wearing long skirts, serving their husbands, and having no rights, and everyone being white, happy, and devoid of individualism, while the propaganda from our side of the world looks pretty much like this. Women go on tractors! Somehow we're way more willing to admit that this may have looked okay on posters, but actually sucked. So I think that while it's probably impossible to abandon having beauty standards as a whole concept, we should try to snap out of the suspicious ones. We know that they can be influenced and they come and go. Body hair, for example, was mostly fine until Gillette started advertising to women. I don't know, I guess this is also just a problem with misogyny and patriarchy. Again, men aren't expected to be in any sense boyish, and nobody tells them they're past their prime so soon after their reach adulthood. Like, typically we see a 30-year-old man as being a bigger guy than a 20-year-old one, because, well, he's in a better financial position and all. They'll tell you that, well, men are just visual creatures, so why do they look like that, right? I'm not going to believe that someone who puts as little effort into their own appearance as an average misogynist and probably says that it's gay, is truly, like, biologically a visual creature. Sorry, no. Honestly, if a man is incapable of loving someone for who they are and just expects them to serve him, he doesn't want a woman. He wants to be worshipped and thinks that with women he's most likely to get it. And right now, no, he's not. It's getting better for us, and we just get to have choices. Sorry, it's too late. Women don't have to do whatever appeals to men, and vice versa, obviously, but it's been historically not in our favor. It's just that when we knowingly do things to ourselves that people would don't find attractive, they won't just like keep that to them. They won't just like keep that to themselves, and in case we're interested in having a relationship, turn us down, or if they're in any way involved in this, like let us know what they think. No, they have to be mean about it, even if that's completely none of their business. And I don't want to sound angry here, because I know that that's a stereotype, that if women speak up about their problems, they're emotional and fatal men. I'm just trying to sound entertaining, so I'm putting emotions into my voice. And also, I don't hate all men. There is plenty of cool men I know out there. I have male friends. Sorry, that's a terrible joke. Yeah, honestly, it's just ironic, because misogynistic men can get absolutely so infuriated when talking about feminism, and also some complaining and maybe jokes. Oh, that's out should be commentating. This isn't comparable to justifying rape, sexualizing everything we do, and especially young girls and what they do, taking away our reproductive rights, insisting on us having an inferior role in public life, or else we're literally disintegrating the fabric of the Western society. It's oral forms, it all crumbles, it's the end. Shaming us for having any sexual desires of our own, or not having when they want it. Or even the stuff that goes on in the porn industry. This video is only about one type of porn that isn't fully connected to it, but sucks too. I'm not anti-porn in the, oh, that's sinful, or, oh, porn broke my dick way. A, not my broken dick, not my problem, and B, honestly, volenti not ignoria. It's just that there's lots of abuse going on there, and a lot of, especially women, get traumatized. Society should probably be way more understanding of sex workers, as opposed to the current situation where watching is mostly fine, but participating makes you a whore, undeserving of any respect and human relationships. Especially in situations of desperations, I really feel like people are too judgmental. It's just sad. And money is also a means of coercion. I don't know if you can truly buy consent, but we should blame the person paying more. I think, but this is a whole different kind of worms. I don't want to be open now. When it comes to lolicon again, one more problem is how not uncommon it is. Twitter definitely has a lolly problem, as I've mentioned, but YouTube isn't entirely safe either. At least you can't post not safe for work stuff here, but there's, for example, this guy with over 600,000 subs, Ref says this, who made several videos defending lolly stuff, and mostly does anime centered, I guess, anti-woke videos, for fighting the Twitter freaks, which I am quite positive is a dog whistle for trans people right now, and those supporting their rights. Can't guarantee you this is what he in particular means by it. That's how dog whistles works. But that's what it usually seems to mean. Don't let the VTuber avatar fool you. This is a grown man.
He deserves the slander. Does he? The guy who makes videos you don't like, he deserves to be slandered and called the worst thing in the world with no evidence just because you don't like him. Also, speaking of deserving things, do you think real victims of CSA deserve to have a term like pedophile be watered down to the point where it actually benefits the real predators because they're not taken as seriously, because this is being thrown out as a buzzword to own people on the internet? Do you think real victims of abuse deserve that? That's pretty strange.
I don't like VTubers in general. I'm biased, sorry. Not my cup of tea. I don't like how expressionless the models seem to be in comparison to like the voice. Just keeping the same neutral face constantly. But that's honestly on a different level. I'm not even saying that it's immoral for a grown man to use a model of an 8-year-old looking 1,000-year-old vampire witch. It's just weird. And knowing his opinion on this stuff creepy. Just look at some of these thumbnails. Jesus, like that's just cropped porn. I honestly don't understand how this guy still hasn't been a huge topic for like commentary YouTubers, because people have been cancelled. That terms unserious. I'm not using it in a serious way, but for less gross behavior. I'm not sure if this is like breaking some YouTube rules. I've seen people get in trouble for way less than defending the stuff. But to be fair, for quite some time now, it feels like they're not enforcing the rules as much, aside from like copyright issues. There are some huge creators doing hate speech and targeted harassment, but since it gives YouTube money, they're just willing to close their eyes, I guess. At least it feels reassuring seeing this guy do the anti-woke stuff, and that we're on different sides on other topics than we're porn too. But there are some big creators who like either making commentary videos on non-shitty people or do these like weird investigations. Like, you don't even have to do any pedo hunting here. It's right there. I've seen that this community, at least on Twitter, I've argued with them in the past, and they'll call whoever criticizes them a pedophile for even suggesting that being into drawn children is pedophilic. And it's obviously angering to have such an accusation thrown at you, especially from such source. They can be very malicious, so I guess trying to take down this big guy would be like poking a bear. And also, like, I personally have no power here. My I'm just very tiny here, but it's still weird how this gets ignored when the whole culture war is about seeing pedophilia everywhere in everything LGBT friendly. It's just again incredibly ironic. The word is very ironic. It just goes to show that these ultra conservative people, I'm not even saying like all conservatives, like I'm sure most of our grandmas and moms are fine, but these content creators who just care about their agenda of gay people bad don't really care about pedophilia, obviously. It's always oh god, I'm losing my voice. It's always been them being weird about the age of consent stuff. You know, if she can bleed, she can breed types. It's always them who comment stuff like, nice, wish that was me, under articles about female teachers sexually assaulting students, and what was she wearing? Why was she there? Oh, she's wearing so much makeup in this photo. Oh, she's so ugly in this room. And there are articles about women or girls getting assaulted. And it's them policing how much of our bodies we can have revealed, because too much is seductive. Even when talking about young children. In Poland it's luckily fine, but outside, guess which people fight for the existence of child marriage? And this is not just some developing country, so it also applies to goddamn USA. Seriously, like, but watching what's going on in the United States of America is like guilty pleasure when it comes to politics. I know it's terrible. It's awful right there out there. I should not be laughing. I should not be laughing. It's just a lot of this stuff is absurd. And it's typically about young girls getting married off to older men, obviously. They don't mind pedophilia. They just care about they mind what they see as weird and not fitting into the status quo. It's not anything rational. They just prey on people's disgust response. You know, they never really show like extremely passing trans people in their materials. They usually pick some trans women who are easy to bully over their appearance, or like drag queens, because they are very out there and, you know, bright. They specifically want these supposed pedophiles to also look cringy in their eyes. And it's the cringe modifier that makes it deranged and wrong. Look at how much material for a dunk there is here, right? It's not even just this one guy. That's a whole community. I just picked him because he's cute. um, but it seems like there's no market for going after a conservative because attacking some random teacher with 5 followers with colored hair that's said on TikTok that they want all their students to feel safe is way more important. That's what's entertaining for their audience. That's at least what's entertaining to their audience, and that's what helps them to spread the message. I also had this Nazi person on Twitter just be xenophobic, or I guess racist towards me some time ago. I'm white. I know this whole like, oh, white people are the racist ones, and you can't be racist. Or like, yeah, sure. They were just doing this whole, oh, but they were just doing this whole, oh, I'm Aryan and better than, and oh, I'm Aryan race school great, and I'm better than other people. Slavs should be our servants. LARP thing, and there were also an example of what I talked about at the beginning. If someone who disagrees with me, in this case with me being a free person living on the land my ancestors inhabited for like at least 1,000 years, and they have an anime profile and they have an anime profile picture, we do not go to their profile. We just don't for our own sanity's sake. I tried to get them banned for literally being a Nazi and gloating over concepts of genocide and subjugation. But Twitter doesn't care if you're a Nazi. It just doesn't punish people at all now, right? Oh, for your information, we should be able to report both the hate speech and just the lolicon quoting. Illustrated, computer-generated, or other forms of realistic depictions of a human child in a sexually explicit content or engaging in a sexually explicit act violate their zero-tolerance child sexual exploitation policy. The problem is, there's so many of them and they keep on making new accounts when they get banned, and they don't even get banned often. Because Elon fired most of Twitter's staff and the system's broke and nothing works and this site is getting eaten by the worst people out there. And it's getting quite unusable. I've actually used way less Twitter recently than I used to, just because it's all annoying and also buggy. But yeah, I don't really know if I have any other conclusion than that we shouldn't let any of this stuff be normalized. And when it comes to the social media part in particular, I genuinely think we'll get out of the radical right dark age soon. And so perhaps it will get better, but it's all for me for now. If you have any more thoughts, because this is a huge topic. I tried being brief, but I see that the recording has been rolling for a pretty long time. Or if you disagree on something, or have something relating to the art or in the background to say, advice, ideas, anything. How's your day going? You can leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. And for now, stay safe, drink a lot. It's really goddamn hot out here. Use sunscreen when going outside too. And peace.